What do you think about the concept of, let's say, a shadchan setting up a couple, and then after the initial suggestion is made, let them exchange phone numbers and take it from there on their own?
I've done that several times and it's worked. I let them make their own plans, but I let them know that I'm still there holding their hand if they need anything, if they want to discuss, if they want to talk, if they want questions, that after each date they should still be in touch with me, but for them to do their own homework, their own dating and who said it, traffic controlling, it's fine.
Does it ever happen that they'll be in crisis mode and you don't know where they're holding? Does that ever happen?
No, because I usually touch base with them after each date.
Uh-huh.
And then if I'm doing that with a couple now, and after each date she'll call me and tell me we discussed this, we discussed that, or if they had a phone conversation and it didn't go well, she'll call me up and she'll tell me, and then I'll follow up with him and see where he's holding and get his side of the story. And so I'm usually still in it holding hands.
My initial response was, why not? There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to set up their own dates. I do have a few concerns. My concern would be on the first 2 or 3 dates, they don't have any kind of relationship and they don't really owe each other anything. So what happens if they need to say no? I feel like it's harder to say no initially than it is later on down the road, only because later down the road, yes, you have a relationship. So from an emotional standpoint, it might be harder, but you then have that connection with somebody to be able to talk to them about it. Versus if I send somebody out on 1 or 2 dates and they want to say no after the second date, to me it would seem harder. I don't know if that's true or not, but to me personally,
I never had a problem doing that.
Your singles had a problem doing that, saying no to each other after a first. Okay.
No.
Okay.
They can say it directly. You're saying that they
tell me.
Oh, they tell it to you.
So I guess the question is that they're just arranging their dates. They're not saying yes or no to each other. They're saying yes or no through the shadchan still.
Correct.
He's shaking his head maybe. Okay.
So that's sort of like an in-between, using the shadchan, but a little bit. But
they're doing their own logistics, that's all. They're just doing the logistics.
That I understand.
Mrs. wanted to say something.
Right.
So I actually had this month 2 stories of couples that the girls were a little bit older. The couples were a little bit older. And it just actually happened that both of them had the same kind of reaction where we're adults. We want to take care of this ourselves. One of them is still going on. It's more than 2 months already. Personally, I think it's a big mistake because I think that they really need I feel like in the end, it's probably just going to end without going through because they don't have the support. But maybe it won't. Maybe a miracle will happen. I keep on just texting them and saying, if you're not talking to me, make sure you have someone else, at least have a different coach. It doesn't have to be me. And I just keep on giving them that message. And the other one actually did fall apart after 6 dates. But the guy was talking to me and the girl was not interested in discussing anything. She felt as if I'm just telling him everything honestly. He should just hear what I'm saying. So I do think that, it's better if the shadchan is kind of involved, but you can't really control people. Everybody's different. And if they're so sure of themselves that they're adults and that they could handle it themselves, there's not much that we can do to change them.
My comment?
But just to set up the dates, that's okay.
That's why I went into dating coaching solely, because as I was being shadchan, I found myself coaching both sides and feeling resistance. Like, why should I be vulnerable? I don't know what you're going to repeat to the other side.
Right.
So when I do coaching, unless something comes up, I follow this single girl or boy, young man, young lady. I follow them on their journey, and I develop a relationship with them, and they know they can trust me. So I understand this young lady. Perhaps she knows that the young man she's dating is speaking with you more, and she doesn't want to share because.
Wait, so do you, Ruchama, pick and choose what you tell to each side?
I don't do both sides unless there's a circumstance. And I'll always ask whoever I started with first. I'll say, are you okay? Do you want me to speak to the shadchan? Do you want me to speak? And there are times I even have told them, I need you to text me that. I mean, I'm not a licensed therapist, but I do still feel confidentiality. If I'm speaking to a girl and she's being vulnerable with me and she's trusting me, I'm her coach. So if there's something that I need to speak to the boy about, she needs to agree. And I'll usually say, text me, at least that you give me permission.
Okay.
Because I understand that it's a tough thing. Why should they trust someone that's in the middle? A coach is different than the shadchan. That's just my personal.
Right. That's why I said it doesn't have to be me. Just make sure.
Right. Right. I hear that. Yeah.
Just the opposite. I even gave them ideas of who to go to. It's fine. Just
That's great.
make sure they're going somewhere.
You really did her homework. Then you can't do any more.
I think there was just one nakuda we didn't touch on. What I tell couples is that it's very beneficial to have one person hearing both sides. I believe there's always a lot lost in the translation, even when the coach and the shadchan, the mother and the shadchan, the different people are speaking to each other. It's just good to hear. A shadchan can filter, and a good shidduch, I believe, can be made or broken by a shadchan. A shadchan can actually really, and of course it's siyata d'shmaya, but it's also seichel. You can really ruin things. You can really help things. And you have to daven always that you're saying the right thing. But everybody should have their people that they speak to. But I see that as in addition to the shadchan. Now, obviously, you can't force them. And many times you get people, especially in their 30s or older, that are just not interested anymore. They just would prefer to talk to each other. And that, I at a certain
But Hillary,
point,
that's why I'm very skeptical about this couple that's still dating. It's great that they maybe have somebody or maybe they don't, but nobody is going to really know what both sides are thinking. So it's a problem.
Right. I mean,
You can't force it.
We can't force them, but that's I just think I tell them that. And if they don't want to listen, that's life.
We've kind of we've done it. I think it's kind of like their preference of what they prefer, where they're at. If they don't want a middleman, that's okay. I think it's about being flexible and, you're there for them. You're not, as mentioned before, you're caring about them as a person and you want to make it easier on them. You're giving them an idea, a suggestion. They want to go with it. Sure. And I don't really see why not. That's the avenue they want to go through.
Yeah, it also depends upon, each circumstance is different. Sometimes in terms, are you letting them set up their own dates, or are you just are they? And that's different than them checking in with you before they agree to go out again. You can be a gatekeeper in the beginning until they tell you they want to drop you, or you could say, okay, you guys have fun, and if you need us, we're here for you. So it really depends. You have to I feel like we have a responsibility at least to check in with the couple and to clarify, what are you comfortable with, what are you not comfortable with, but I know with a lot of older singles, they feel like, okay, we're adults already, we don't need to go to the shadchan. But, if one party wants it and the other one, needs to be respectful also. So it really depends.
My question just is, has anybody ever encountered when people do want to date like this, and then there's a crisis that comes and they turn to you and you really don't know where they're up to, what happened, the turn of events? Would that impact anything in terms of trying to save the shidduch, or you just, say, oh, I'm really sorry,
We've been filled in enough that it's worked for us.
Yeah, meaning
but
you're not,
be that
you're not totally dropping all effort or not staying in touch with the singles. It's just a matter of, if they want to have set up their own dates and they want to take charge of their own relationship, that's great. But you can still politely check in and say, hey, how's it going? Is there anything we can do? Do you want to fill us in? And, still being there as a sounding board for them, unless, of course, they have their own, mentors that they're using, in which case, you could have, if they prefer to speak to their rabbi or their mentor, and that person needs to be the person who steps in if there's a crisis.
I think just get things started. I think that they would benefit from a shadchan to be able to weed out certain difficulties that might come up at the beginning. And then in terms of like towards the end, I've seen different couples drag out relationships because they don't have the direction that a shadchan can offer. And sometimes when people go out for too long, then it fizzles. And I think that had they had a little bit more direct structure, things could have just gone on a more direct path. So I don't think people have to stay with a shadchan for forever. They could drop them along the way when they feel comfortable and secure. But I think there's definitely a place for a shadchan in couples dating. And just because a couple is like in their 30s doesn't mean that they don't need a shadchan anymore. Sometimes the people that have dropped shadchanim along the way are people in their 30s thinking, we don't need that. You know, we're older, we don't need it. But it's almost those couples in particular that I think would benefit most from that.
Would you advise guys to go out with girls that are older than them, or girls to go out with guys that are maybe younger than them?
How'd you know to ask me that question? My husband is a few years younger than me, and I mean, age is totally irrelevant once you meet somebody very often. And I really think that, no, it really depends on the person and their background, where they're coming from. And they definitely should be open about it.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of factors. If everything else or most things sound good, I don't think age necessarily has to get in the way. I know some people, that's like a deal breaker. Everyone kind of, that one I feel is more like that individual basis, because you can advise, but if that's like a red flag, or when it's not a red flag, what's what I'm looking for? Some people are so uncomfortable with it, they're not going to get past it, then fine. But most people, I think, if everything else looks good and you still have that chemistry, you still have that attraction, you still have that emotional connection, then, you know, it's worth giving that a chance. Then I definitely would advise.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more about the emotional maturity of the two individuals, because I know some very immature 30-year-olds, you know, who might do better dating, a more mature, like immature 20-year-old, you know, and it could work either way. You know, I don't think it makes really a difference, other than, okay, maybe if you're talking about older singles who might have certain genetic limitations, then yeah, that's a different question. But when you're talking about people in their 20s and 30s, I think within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it should not make a difference, and even bigger if the people are on the same page hashkafically.
Rabbi Leifer, I wanted to say that when I dated my husband, he actually had no idea that I was older than him. And it was, I guess he got an old resume or whatever, and the rest is history because we're married. But like he actually had no idea. And sometimes it's better to be like, keep it quiet, you never know. But I also agree, like it's obviously into each individual person, but it's why not, like why make an age a limit? Because you could have like a very young older person that's like or a younger person than you, or older person than the person, and the age is so minute, so nothing.
I just wanted to say for everybody out there that I was reading this week in the newspaper, I was reading about the Parsha, and I did not know this, but Amram was younger than Yocheved, and their kids. Just putting it out there for all you guys that are afraid of, going out with the girls who are older than you. No reason.
Are there any kinds of people, you ready for this one, that you refuse to set up, or you feel that they should not get married?
Well, if I think that a person seems very unhealthy and really has a lot of baggage from his background that probably should take care of it, then yeah, I'll tell him, could you please go take care of that first?
I think there are definitely several reasons. Number one, if I see consistently someone turning someone down solely on their looks, that's a red flag. I recently heard of someone, it wasn't me, but a guy was suggested 50 girls to him, and he turned every single one of them down except one. And the one that said yes, the girl actually declined. So that's one reason. Say, if I'm working harder than they are, it's a problem. Meaning, if I'm leaving messages for someone or emailing them, and they don't call me back or don't respond to me, I say they're not ready. The singles have to take some initiative on when it comes to dating. I cannot be the one to chase them around. That's number 2. Number 3, it's kind of like
that line. Great line. If I'm working harder than they are, great line.
Thank you. And the other one is if they definitely have a very negative midah that they need to work on, kind of like you were saying, especially if I'm hearing that feedback consistently from the other side, like if I've set them up more than once and the girls keep saying the same thing, then that's a red flag. For example, I had a situation where I set up the guy twice, and both girls said the same thing, and they said that he just is totally self-absorbed and was talking most of the dates and would not let the girl talk, and it was all about him. So those 3 reasons.
I've come across people that make me feel very uncomfortable. There's many different reasons. I do try sometimes, like if it's a younger person and they give me their parents' number, so I'll call and I'll discuss it and we'll try to figure out. And a lot of parents are very open and very honest about certain situations and very healthy about it. And those kind of parents are people that want to work with you and want to work with whatever the limitations or whatever you notice about the person. Those type of situations I would be more likely to be involved in because the parents are on board. You know what I'm saying? Whereas if I meet a person who's like an older person who has certain situations and I'm not comfortable with it and I have nobody to talk to about it, nobody to find out what's really going on, then I can't get involved. I'm too afraid. I don't know what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I meet everybody before I set them up.
Sometimes you find where parents of a single will say no to a suggestion, and for a specific reason, and you think that the single might not necessarily agree with that reason. How would you approach this? Would you speak to the parents? Would you speak to the single, or would you just let it roll?
I think it would really depend on my relationship with the parents and or the single. If I had the relationship with the parents, I would have to really think about how I would want to tell them that, depending on how close you are with somebody, it will determine how open you can be. So if the single were older, I might talk directly to the single, again, assuming I had a relationship. I may also decide to speak with someone else that's close. If the parents are close to whether it's a relative that I know or whether it's a Rav or someone that they would listen to, the point would be to get the point across, not for me to have to be the one to do it. So I would really put thought into whom do I know that will be makabel what I have to say. I just also want to go back to your question that you asked in terms of would you not suggest anybody, or would I not read a shidduch to somebody? And I guess when I saw that question, I was really thinking more in terms of whether you know someone or are nervous or suspicious of someone having some abusive personality traits. And I guess I've been in that experience, and I certainly do not want to set anyone up that I think may be a problem, as a husband. And whether I would share, I'm not going to share that information with other people, but I'm certain, unless there's a reason to, and then you have to do it halachically, discreetly, etc. But I'm certainly not going to set someone up if I think that he's going to, he or she, I guess in my experience, it's unfortunately been the males that are, potentially abusive. So I think that that's something that we do, unfortunately, in today's day and age, have to really think about.